So, Taha Hussein. He's a big deal Egyptian author who wrote a ton of books and got himself a pretty cool nickname. But his most famous work is the one that he never intended to publish, his autobiography, Ayam. Annoying publishers, am I right? And many students hated him for it because nothing gives you more hate than being forced to read you for an exam. Which is really unfair since the book is really an enjoyable read in its own right. But I won't say anymore, I'll let you decide for yourselves as we take a deep dive into Ayam. Taha's earliest memory involves a tall sugarcane fence, which he thought was so long that it extended to the edge of the world. He then saw a small rabbit that could either jump over the fence or squeeze through it to the other side, which made him jealous for some reason. His older sister then dragged him home to give him his medicine, which he really hated, but he takes it like a strong man that doesn't cry like his little baby sister. He is then put to bed, but he is too afraid to sleep, because he thinks that ghosts and ifrits will mess with his limbs if left uncovered. He even thinks that ifrits are pretending to be roosters to lure him out at dawn. So after a long sleepless night, the village women come to the nearby stream to wash their stuff. And their sound was Taha's cue to get out of bed, because apparently ifrits cannot pretend to be women, I guess. Taha literally thought the sugarcane fence extended to the edge of the world. I wasn't joking. There was a small irrigation channel, which for a little boy's imagination seemed like an ocean. Inside that ocean lurked magical crocodiles and giant man-eating fish, and if you are swallowed by one of these fish, you could hit a jackpot, finding the Ring of Solomon, which can summon jinn servants to obey every command. And what was Taha's biggest wishes to ask a jinn? Well, getting across the ocean, of course. But he was too scared to be swallowed by the wrong fish, so he never tried it. Now, if you move left or right of the channel, you will see some interesting neighbors. To his right, a large family lived in a mansion with two big scary dogs constantly barking everyone away. To his left, there was a Bedouin named Saeed, and he was rumored to be randomly killing people. Taha's main concern, however, was Saeed's wife Kawabis, who often visited them and kissed little baby Taha, and she had a very big nose ring that constantly hit his face. But a few years later, those neighbors disappeared, as did the sugarcane fence and the rabbit. Taha had no recollection what happened to them. They all just vanished, replaced with big neighborhoods and organized streets. As for the channel, his older brothers carried him to the other side. The ocean, as it turns out, is just a few meters wide, and the wonderland on the other side are just farms full of apples and berries. Guess how many siblings Taha had? Wrong, it's 12, including 2 half-siblings. But for some reason, he always knew he was special. His parents were gentler with him and he wasn't allowed to play certain games. As he grew, his siblings began to describe things he cannot understand. It's as if he cannot see. Taha was in fact blind. This is Taha Hussein's most famous attribute, and this should tell you how precious these early memories were to Taha. He wasn't born blind, and these few days, that sugarcane fence and that rabbit were the only memories where he could actually see his surroundings. And that vast 2-meter ocean wasn't simply a figment of his imagination, but a result of a slowly degrading eyesight that made him see stuff out of proportion. No one has ever told him this in order to protect his feelings, and indeed his life mostly stayed the same after this revelation. One incident, however, completely changed him for good. It was a random family dinner. Taha always ate with one hand, but then he thought, what if he ate with 2 hands? So he grabbed the bread with both hands, got himself a huge dip from the common dish. It dripped all over the place and he looked extremely ridiculous, and his entire family laughed loudly at him, except his parents. Taha was deeply embarrassed from that day. He limited the types of food and drinks he consumed, and he would eat very little at a very slow pace so that he wouldn't drip anything, and he would avoid food that required utensils like soups. His caring mother, however, wanted him to enjoy food, so she arranged for him to eat in a private room away from any mocking eyes. He became generally starved, thin, and inactive when playing with his siblings, exclusively preferring mind games over physical activities, which was supplemented by poetry, history, oral stories, books, singing, eulogies, praises, and prayers he heard from his parents and the village communities. He would start recognizing patterns of the villagers and form critical opinions on them. Women, for instance, would be talking, singing, crying, even if no one is around to listen. And he would prefer his mother's eulogies over his sister's frivolous songs. But it was his religious grandfather who had the most profound effect on him. And it was through him that he began to understand God and religion. And in just a few months, Taha would fully memorize the Holy Quran.